everyone, it's Becky here and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the new video. I have a little bit of an unusual situation here because this is the first time I'm filming standing and it feels quite weird, so hopefully I'm not gonna be moving too much because I cannot really stand just and not move. But we are now in the process of renovating, and basically if you haven't seen our living room, it's just one big mess and everything is piled up, and I literally have one tiny space here in front of the library, but also behind me there is a lot of stuff from the other room we are just renovating, so I cannot really have a chair here and to sit even. So this is why I'm standing, and hopefully it's gonna be fine. I'll do my best not to move too much. But today I'm very excited because I'm going to be talking about few books which I read in the month of September, and well, one book which I finished over the summer, but I wanted to include it because I haven't really spoken about it yet. And it's been a while since I did a wrap-up video because, as you know, I've been struggling a little bit this year with reading in general, and I went through quite few reading slumps, but now I feel like I'm finally in a good place again, and I read 4 books, which most of them I enjoyed very much, so I wanted to share that with you. And please, if you read any of these, as always, let me know in the comments your opinions on them because I would very much love to hear. And yeah, without further ado, I will just start. And I will start with the book which I finished yesterday, and it's called Yellowface by Rebecca Kuang. And let me tell you, at first I absolutely did not intend to read this book. It was sort of like accident that I did, because last month I went with my sister to explore Vienna a little bit, and I wanted to find some second-hand bookshops. And for whatever reason, I thought that Shakespeare and Company is only second-hand bookstore, and I was hoping to find there some used second-hand cheap books, and I was very much surprised to discover that it is not at all. They only have their new books. It's like normal bookshop with normal prices, which really hurt my wallet right now, my unemployed wallet. However, I did find there one section where they had approximately like 10 books which were second-hand, and they were quite cheap, so I was like, oh yes, and this was the one of them. So I decided, okay, I'm not gonna come empty-handed because I was super excited and very disappointed afterwards that it's not just second-hand books. So I decided to take at least something, and I heard about this book a little bit before, so I decided, okay, this is the one I'm gonna take with me. And I was very surprised to discover after I finished this, only after I finished the book, and I was on the last page when there was little commentary about the author. That's only when I discovered that this author wrote most of the books which I was either planning to read, or I heard of them, or I knew them at least, but I just didn't connect it that it's this author who wrote them. So that was quite a surprise. But I think that after reading this book, I would very much like to give it a go, although I know that the other books are also quite different genres, so I'm quite curious. However, for me, this book, 5 stars, and let me tell you why. First of all, if you haven't read this or you don't know what this book is about, so very briefly, the premise of this is that we have our main character June, who really wishes and dreams of to be a successful author, a writer. And at the beginning of the story we discover that she has this one friend, well, she's not really her friend, but let's call her friend for now, Athena Liu, who is a very successful author. They're approximately same age, they used to be classmates, they know each other, and June is very jealous of her because Athena is the one person June really inspires to be, in a way that she seems to be perfect as a person and as a writer. And it seems like everything really comes easy to Athena because she published her debut novel, which was a huge hit, and from that point onwards it seems like every single book she writes is just a huge hit, and it's very easy for her to find always a publisher, and she has a good agent, and she's famous and people love her and readers want to meet with her, and all of this is exactly what June wants. But to her it seems to come very difficult because her debut novel wasn't such a big success, and now she struggles to even have a proper agent who would represent her and help her, and she also struggles to come up with ideas for the book, so she's very jealous of Athena. And at the very beginning of the book, June actually witnessed Athena die, and in that moment in Athena's house, June decides to steal the manuscript of Athena, the very brand new novel nobody heard of and nobody read yet, and she decides to publish it under her name and basically sort of steal her identity. And from now onwards we read the book and discover what happens to her and to manuscript and how this story unfolds. I like this so much. I read this in 3 days, and I must tell you that one reason why I really like this book is that it made me feel something for the first time, which I haven't had before, and that was to dislike the main character. And I really want to hear your opinion on this in the comments, because honestly, being someone who, okay, now I had a little longer break from writing, but on one level, I can so understand June and her intentions and her thinking process and her wanting to be, you know, the best, and you love writing and you want it to be your whole life's purpose, but you also want people to appreciate it and to love it, and also, you know, fame should come with it in a way. So I absolutely understand this, and also because writing was something, as we later discovered, that really helped her in her life as well, and basically her whole life is filled with writing, and that's the purpose of her life, and only thing she wants is for people to appreciate it and to love it. So on one hand, I absolutely understand this. On the other hand, I just cannot justify what she did and also her behavior later, because all the justification she's trying to provide, I'm just like, girl, no. It's not like I hate her, because I understand her in a way, not to the point that I would steal somebody's manuscript. But it's just so contradictory for me, because on one hand, I really want to, in a way, support her and like her, but I just cannot. And it irritates me in a way that I dislike the main character, because that never happened to me before. Like, yes, I was in a situation when I read the book and I didn't like certain character, but it never was a main character. So that was really very interesting to me. As well as I feel like this book really touches a lot of topics besides the whole plot and the main story. For one, I think it gives very good dive and sort of like sneak peek into the darker side of the publishing industry and the publishing process, and I feel like the way it's described here, it does apply to other industries as well, and touches topics such as diversity and how that affects the success of someone sometimes in certain situation, that you need to have certain background, and then even when you are an author, sometimes publishers themselves will put you in this box of a certain genre you already wrote and you were successful in, and even if you want to try to write something new and like spread your voice or discover new voices inside of you, you are basically not allowed, because there is a fear that it will not make as much money than the book before, because people are already expected something specific from you. So that was interesting to read as well. But also another topic for me, which I think resonates with me the most from this book, besides the main plot, is the power, like terrifying power of the internet, and especially social media, and how people can be so nasty that it comes to the point that it's almost dangerous. For me, the theme or the topic of social media and how that can impact someone who becomes a sort of like a victim. Yes, in this case there was a reason for it, but still I don't think it justifies behavior of the people on the internet who sometimes writes horrible things there, including threats and wishing someone death and recommending them to be suicidal and stuff like that. So there were definitely so many topics which I really felt touched by, and then plus the whole plot and the way the story was constructed, it just really kept me hooked, and I was reading this in 3 days and so quickly, and every time I had a little bit of time I was just trying to read it. For me, definitely 5 stars, I would say, and I would like to try and explore the other books from this author. So please, if you read this, let me know, and also let me know your thoughts on the main character, because in a way I feel guilty that I disliked her, but at the same time I'm like, eh. So yeah, let me know. Okay, my friends, that was the first book. So the second book I would like to talk to you about is Table for Two by Amor Towles, and I read this book, I believe it was during summer, but I wanted to include it here because I have a feeling that Amor Towles is becoming one of my new favorite authors, and after finishing this book I think he's very much written in my heart, because I read Gentleman in Moscow by him last year and I very much enjoyed this. And one thing I really love about his writing is that for me personally it feels almost like reading a poetry, because the way how he can construct sentences, it's such a smooth thing to read, and I still have a feeling that his stories are mostly about people and how people can affect or touch other people's lives, and yet still, despite this, that people are the main, at least for me, how I view it, that people are the main core of their stories, still he is able to bring a fantastic point at the end in his short stories. That's what I love it. And this book is a collection of short stories, specifically 6, and there is one shorter novella at the end as well. And one thing I really enjoyed about this author as well, especially when it comes to authors who write short stories, and if they're written on different topics, I feel like the author must really be, you know, like well read or experienced, not necessarily only in terms of writing, but also in life, so to speak. So he's able to speak about various topics, and I feel like Amor Towles really does this perfectly, because here you can find you can find stories about art, about music, about things such as waiting in a line, but he writes it so beautifully that it literally makes you stop and think even about such a silly thing like waiting in a line, which can give purpose to somebody's life. And I don't think there is anything negative I would write about this. Maybe one small, that in my opinion, I would maybe not include the shorter novella in this, because I really enjoyed these short stories, and to be honest with you, despite the short novella taking the biggest space of the book, I do struggle to remember bits and pieces from that. I feel like the most I remember from the book and most I enjoy were those short stories, but the novella itself, I would maybe have it as a separated book. And also, as I later discovered, the character from novella is also a character who was mentioned in one of his previous books, which I haven't read yet, that one. Although I don't think it might affect my experience from reading it that much, because as I found out through Goodreads, it seems like this short story or this novella is not that tightly tied up to the previous book. But still, I feel like I would like to read the other book as well, and then maybe come back to this short novella and then see how I feel. So if you read this, please let me know in the comments, and also highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend. Okay, my friends, another book I would like to talk to you about, and I must confess that I was actually thinking whether to even bring it up or not, but then I was like, okay, you read it, so you just speak about it. It's the book called Want by Gillian Anderson, and if you are familiar with this book, you know that this is basically a collection of anonymous letters written to Gillian from women from the whole world. And the purpose of these letters is to let women freely express their fantasies and desires. And I must tell you that still until this point I feel sort of like yes and no with the book, and I haven't finished it completely. I will tell you why. But on the yes side of things, for me, I found this to be a very interesting idea. First of all, I love Gillian Anderson, and her commentary at the beginning of the book is something I very much enjoyed and made me really excited to read it, because I feel the way it was presented, it's mostly like a feminist essays on this particular topic, and the commentary from Gillian made me feel like that as well. So I was very excited. I found it's gonna be an interesting idea, and I like that there are women from the whole world, so different backgrounds, different ethnicities, it might be different experiences, different point of views, and I was like, okay, this sounds really good. And then I started to read it, and that's where it goes to a little bit on no side for me, for the reason that I do feel that presenting it as an feminist essay on this topic is a little bit misleading, because for me personally, at the end of the day, is really just a collection of letters in which women describe their fantasies. And on one hand, this is not necessarily bad, because I feel like one of the purposes of this book is also to let women write freely about the stuff they feel maybe ashamed, or they would not really express them otherwise out loud. And we know that in many countries, and not necessarily only countries, but places around the world, women do feel ashamed for these certain things. So I thought, okay, this is on the plus side, something that women can empower a little bit, let's say. However, when I was reading it, especially as I got to the half of it approximately, it just became really repetitive, and I must say that I really missed some sort of commentary on like closer analysis or something like this. It feels to me a little bit like such a good opportunity which was not grasped properly, because at the end of the day, as pages goes, there's just letter with it is what it is fantasies of women. And whilst I support women to have a freedom of speech, certain things really creeped me out, and not creepy in a way that I would want to be judgmental, but to the point that, for example, at the beginning there was a commentary how they made the whole selection process, which letters to include and which not, and that they wanted to be very much cautious and careful not to include some stuff which can be, for example, triggering when it comes to rape or these sort of things. And yet there were still some letters which were not very much how to even call it, like appropriate, or could be quite concerning in a way, like those certain fantasies when you want to, you know, like hurt someone or commit a crime, or even like on the verge of rape. So that was a little bit strange for me, and also how the whole selection process was done to decide which of these stories are going to get there, because basically I feel like there is no really like a specific thread which would certain stories or certain fantasies put together that it would make sense. I don't know, it just felt a little bit confusing to me, and also repetitive at the end. One thing I really missed is, for example, having there some commentary from, let's say, sex therapist or psychologist or someone, because I feel like it just did not really live to its potential, you know? So I'm not saying this book is entirely wrong. I feel there are certain good points about it, but for me personally, I just struggle to see the bigger meaning behind this, especially the way it's presented. I feel like it's presented as something bigger than it is in a way. For someone who likes to read like spicy stuff, not bad, but I was really looking forward for some deeper meaning, if I can call it like this. So if you read this, I would love to hear your opinion. Okay, my friends, and moving to the last book which I read is called The Dutch House by Patchette, and I have never read anything by this author, and I had this book on my TBR for basically from the year when it was released, which I believe was 2019, and I had an audiobook, and it took me quite a while to get to this, but I'm very happy I did. And let me tell you, the audiobook was narrated by Tom Hanks, and that's been one of my biggest pleasures of the last month. I was so happy I decided to go with audiobook, because I think the story itself would go a little bit slow paced for me, and I might struggle to finish the book if I read it as a physical copy or an ebook. But for those of you who don't know, The Dutch House, it's a story of two siblings. For me especially, it's a sibling story, and I very much liked it, and I very much felt like I can relate to it because I do have a sister. And we follow two of them. It's Danny and Maeve, who are growing up in a Dutch house, which is this huge, wonderful mansion their father bought for their mother. But interesting fact, their mother absolutely hated the house, and after she left or sort of like disappeared, their father remarried for this who you can call evil stepmother with her own children. And basically after their father passed away, evil stepmother Andrea sort of like made them homeless and kicked them out of the house. And from this point onwards, we follow the story of these two siblings, how they navigate through life, and how especially Maeve, the older sister, is taking care of the younger brother. One thing I really enjoy is the chronology of the story, because it's not completely linear, but I don't think you can call it non-linear structure either. It's told from the Danny's point of view, and the way he speaks or way he describes some events in his life is very interesting, because we are finding ourselves in certain point of the story, let's say when they are, I don't know, teenagers or something, and then he jumps to speak about some person he met, and later on he speaks about how he was married to her, and then it comes back to, not necessarily comes back, but he's still in the moment of them being teenagers, for example, but he speaks about all of these different things and unwraps different timeline of the story, if that makes sense. So it was very interesting, and I really enjoyed that. Also, the way the characters are described, and especially the relationship of the siblings, is very, very lovely and made me a little bit emotional at certain points. Highly recommend. For me, I think this was for 3.5, 4 stars, but I think the plus point is for Tom Hanks reading it. So if you never touched this book but you want to read it, I highly recommend the audiobook. So yes, my friends, this is my little wrap-up. I feel like it's a little bit complicated for me to speak on the camera right now because it's been a while, and I also, which is very interesting, find myself to struggle a little bit to not stutter when I speak in English, because right now my days are just filled with learning German, and I realized that sometimes when I stutter, it's because certain words which I already learned in German, I want to say them in German and not English, and my brain is so confused from how is this even possible. So yes, my friends, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe if you are new here, because it really supports my channel. And also I discovered that many people who are watching my videos are not subscribed, so please, if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing, and hopefully I will see you soon with another video. And I know I will, because recently I discovered this tag I want to do, and it's been a while since I did a tag video, so you can look forward for that. And also Victober is approaching and I'm more excited than ever. So I will see you soon, my friends. Take care. Bye bye.